Welcome to the Relentless Minds podcast with Lori Jimenez, a platform where influential entrepreneurs get real and share their stories of challenges in life that they've had to face head-on and conquer in order to be where they are today. Here, you'll get an inside look at the adversities that these individuals have experienced or are currently dealing with, in addition to their opinions on real-life matters and philosophies in life. Most importantly, you'll learn what it takes to have a relentless mind so that you too can stay headstrong in your pursuit of a better future. In this podcast, you're going to get 100% authenticity from people that have figured out how to beat the noise that society creates and have a higher level of self-mastery. Hey everyone, today I am interviewing Roro Asmar. Roro, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to be here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this. I'm very excited.
So to the audience, I just wanted to give a quick introduction. Roro is a vegan chef and entrepreneur in the DC area. He owns and personally runs his own restaurant and food truck business, specializing in Middle Eastern cuisine with a vegan twist. He also creates vlogs on YouTube and is actively involved in the mental health community, including the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention and other efforts to bring awareness to mental health. So I actually connected with you, Roro. I met you, the first time I met you was at a local real estate event. You were working there and you were serving food from your truck. So I saw your liveliness and your ambition. You seemed really happy. And so that inspired me to look up your business and essentially follow you on Instagram. So it's funny, now we're here, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be here today.
Thank you so much. I'm about to say it's very cool. I love people who share in their passions, share that fire in their passions, definitely. So thanks so much for having me today.
Awesome. So I wanted to ask you, you're vegan yourself, right? And you promote it big time. What started that?
Growing up, big meat eater myself, actually, kind of the macho man growing up, just reading bodybuilding magazines and seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger, just go to town on any evil villain in a movie. I was always a big steak and chicken eater, and I played football growing up, and it was all about protein and gain. So it was funny because later in my life, when I was actually a personal trainer as a kind of side hustle, and was working on kind of meal prepping for myself to keep myself in shape and cooking for myself, my little brother had kind of mentioned to me one time how he was going vegetarian. He was giving, he wanted to give up meat for Lent, or for some reason we all kind of piggyback off over the New Year resolution kind of situation. I laughed at him. I thought it was funny. I picked on him a little bit, and I told him, there's no way. How can you sustain your muscle? How are you gonna get your workouts in? You're gonna be tired and frail, and you're gonna look so skinny. Like, that's a bad thing or something. I don't know why that's a bad thing. And so I kind of put my foot in my mouth. I gave it a try myself, and I'm always the kind of person that I wanna. I don't like to just talk about things. I'm more action. I like to do something. I like to try it out for myself before judging it too harshly, or never even giving it a try and just kind of talking about it in the breeze. So I tried it myself. I was vegetarian for about a year. And then after that, I kind of just one thing led to another, and I kept going with it. And then I became vegan. At first, for my health, I felt a plant-based diet, really just brought out the best in me physically and mentally. So that was something that I really liked. I'd always been the kind of person, I was on every diet. At any given time, at any given point of the year, I was always trying some new trend, or keto, or high carb, low carb, low fat, high fat, all of this under the tree. But it was the first time where I felt at peace with what I was eating, as opposed to being obsessed about what I was eating. I was just enjoying my food, as opposed to always being anxious about my food. So it was a nice switch for me, and I really enjoyed it, and it helped me just keep it in a more constant state. And then obviously, information, something that we take for granted, but something that is out there in just droves. So it was a thing where I started doing more research into the vegan lifestyle and what it entailed. And when it came to the planet around us and just the effects that I was neglecting and ignoring for so long about just simple decisions like what I was eating on my plate, the fact that I didn't realize that me picking up a burger or a french fries wasn't just me making that decision, but also not just me making a decision about what I was eating, but me making a decision that was dictating the health of the planet. and it was something that I just, after learning about, like, animal agriculture specifically, the fact that what it takes to get that food on our plate that we so heavily mass consume, I just got to a point where I kind of realized, hey, I can't control everyone else around me, but I can control myself. And being that I feel so great eating a plant-based, being plant-based in my lifestyle anyway, I decided, hey, if it also helps others around me and helps keeps the energy more positive in my life and in this planet, why the fuck not,
Yeah. Awesome. So that stemmed from you first trying vegetarian for a year, and then you just decided you liked how it felt.
Yeah, that's the thing. I get asked all the time by people. It's like, oh my God, how can you do it? Oh, you're a chef. That's why you can be vegan. Like, listen, first of all, I'm a self-taught chef. Like, my grandmother taught, like, the reason my name, the whole Roro brand and everything, it's like, it was named after my grandmother. Roro is a nickname for Robert. So my name legally is Robert, but
nice.
I go by Roro because my grandmother always called me that when I was a little kid. My mom would call me that growing up, and it was just kind of one of those things that it defined me. So that's why I went. I decided to name my business that.
Awesome.
I started just to go by that more often. It wasn't I gave myself that nickname. I just decided to actually let people call me my nickname for once.
I was wondering if it was your middle name.
No,
it's not. It's just a nickname.
It's a nickname.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's
Good.
a shorthand for Robert, because I'm Lebanese. So
yeah.
It's our version of Roberto for Robert.
Oh, so
and that's what we call
so
it.
Spanish sounding.
Yeah, we gotta roll that tongue. I gotta work on that.
So I also know that you competed in bodybuilding, and you did it on a plant-based diet.
Yes, I did.
How did that happen? Like, how does that work? Because I'm all about meat-based meals, like for my protein.
Yeah, it definitely. I mean, honestly, it was tricky. Yes, being that eating a plant-based diet or being vegan, you definitely, to just be more economically friendly and just to enjoy your meals as opposed to like stuffing it all down and having to force your food down. Your protein intake is not going to be as high as you're acclimated to or as you're taught or told to. Which side note, I like I said, I used to be a personal trainer. I had my CSCS, my NASM certification. I used to do meal prepping and stuff. So I've done the studying. So I see that the protein intake that we require to have our minimal output during the day is a lot lower than a lot of people think. Hence why the meat industry does definitely help push that a little bit. Oh, you need 40 grams of protein every meal to look like this or to look like that or to sustain. In my opinion, it's not true.
Yeah.
Arguments here and there, you can go ahead. But I believe, your protein quantity is a lot lower than you actually think it needs to be. And that kind of is like one of those things that drives it so much. So, but obviously being in a bodybuilding show and having to be on a specific and particular diet, I'm 6'4", I'm like 230 pounds, like naturally, just like year round, 230, 240 pounds. So I had to eat a lot of food during this prep to keep and maintain and sustain. So it was definitely tough keeping that protein really high with a plant-based diet. But being vegan outside of bodybuilding, it's manageable.
Yeah,
it's very
awesome.
easy to do.
So you figured out a way.
Yeah. Just bouncing around with a lot of grains and sweet potato and some. There's nowadays you can go to any grocery store and there's a lot of alternative meats. People say, oh, you're eating fake vegan meat. Well, it is a lot of it is processed, but it's better processed than some of the other things you can get or that you would get anyway in the grocery store. So it was good for me.
And I actually saw on your Instagram a lot. You're big on promoting mental health. Like a lot of your posts are about that, and you're really involved in that community. What started you on that journey?
Well, actually, so what started me on that journey was a long time ago, probably, in college, I would say, was kind of the big moment or big challenge I faced in my life that started a new chapter to my world. Hence why, it's like my Instagram handle is like, Chef Roro's World. It's kind of like, got to a point in my life where I was so lost and I was so off my path, off my journey that, my mental health was something that I neglected for so long that my mental illness, it took over. And I had a point in my life where I was at a real all-time low. Kind of everything around me was kind of falling down, and I didn't know how to positively cope with that. So I was about, say 22. I was in my third year in school, and I had attempted suicide. And I got to a point that was so low in my life that, I saw there was no way out. I felt that at the time that, I couldn't see myself for who I was. I had lost myself for so long, and I didn't know how to define myself for so long that I just got lost in the darkness at that point. And, kind of after that happened, I was very fortunate to be able to take steps in my rehabilitation and in moving forward with my life. So after my attempted suicide, I had actually had to take part in a rehabilitation program. And from that point, it kind of was just picking myself up and out of this darkness that I had fallen so deep into. And I was, along the way, kind of, stumbling into it, but finding my way towards who I am now.
And your illness that you mentioned, this is the bipolar depression that you were diagnosed with. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, when I was about 21, I was diagnosed with bipolar depression and, put on treatment of medication. Bipolar depression, for those who don't know, is when you have an imbalance in your system in which your body doesn't produce enough endorphins consistently, the happy chemical. So you have a lot of manic mood swings that can last from 1 week to 6 months, in which you see like extreme lows to extreme highs. So it was kind of it would be basically triggers in my life, because like at the time when everything kind of really just came to a halt, my parents were getting divorced. My little sister has a rare condition that was affecting her and making life very hard on her. I was in college dealing with the pressures of studying and keeping my grades up and exams. And at the time when I was in school, I played football, so I was also on the football team, and we had practice. And I wasn't playing well, and my coaches were getting down on me, and I wasn't doing well in school. And I was turning to alcohol and I was turning to drugs to cope with all these stress and all these pressures that I just couldn't manage and I couldn't maintain, and I couldn't keep up with them.
So you were diagnosed at 21.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that you experienced like this sort of negativity, like these thoughts, even before then, like time before then?
Yeah, I would definitely say, when I was younger, I had moments where I would sit back in the back of my head, kind of think what's going on. It's kind of something I felt that was one of my problems was I had such a trouble opening up. I had such trouble talking about what was really going on in my head, what was really going on in my life, that any negativity that was coming towards me, I just kind of took the brunt of it. I just let it all happen to me instead of processing it in a healthy way, instead of dealing it within a healthy way. I just swallowed it up and I balled it up inside and I kept it in my stomach and I just kept going on and I kept putting on a smile. I kept acting. And that's the thing, it was like I felt myself trying to play a character for so long in my life that when it got to a point that I realized I was living as someone else, that's when it kind of like the glass shattered. I looked in the mirror and I saw someone I didn't recognize. I saw someone who I knew I wasn't. I was kind of like, it was like I was trapped inside my body, but I didn't know how to get out properly. I didn't know the way out of the situation.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things that I really had to come to terms with, was accepting my flaws and accepting, that downs are a part of life. It is not all up. The roller coaster doesn't always, end at a high point. Sometimes it comes to a halt. And when it does that, what do you do then? How do you process? How do you move forward? How do you talk about it? How do you deal with it?
Yeah. So you definitely felt that there was something going on from before, like you had these lows. And why do you feel, because I know you talk about this stuff, the sort of like mental awareness for men especially. How do you feel like you keeping it in, like what influenced that of like not sharing it with people?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I mean, like I said, I played football. So, growing up, I was always, on a sports team with a bunch of guys kind of in that real high, like hormonal, like the testosterone filled situations at like a majority of my life. So I was always around guys, when I was a boy, I was always hanging around with friends. And in that situation, you're young, you're impressionable, and everything around you is telling you to be strong, to be silent, to be, the biggest guy in the room, the loudest guy in the room, the guy always making jokes, the guy's always laughing. It was always about trying to be the popular guy. And that popular guy that kind of, every adolescent boy wants to be, a part that isn't so heavily prevalent in today's culture, in today's society, in today's even portrayed in today's entertainment industry. Rarely do you get an image of that popular guy who is sad, or that popular guy who got rejected, or that popular guy who is dealing with family troubles, or dealing with not doing well in school. And when those things happen, which by the way, you are going to fail, you are going to get rejected by that girl, you're going to have a hard time coming out to your parents, you're going to have a hard time breaking outside of what society is telling you to be. That when you try to do those things and you're met with resistance, or you're met with negativity, or you're met with ignorance, as a man or a boy, you feel like you have to take a step back. You have to let your true self be silent and portray the masculine, male, strong, dominant identity that society wants you to be, or else you're going to be uncomfortable, or else you're not going to be heard. And that's something that I think shaped so much of my life, that putting up that wall, that portraying that big, strong guy, that big, strong, silent type, it hurt me more than anything. It really held back my growth spiritually and mentally so much that I did reach that point that I had to do that something had to happen. I had to be in that low point to be able to pick myself up out of that hole, and to realize, looking back, that the man society wants me to be is not the man I need to be, and the man that is going to be, the most positive version of myself in this world. And it was kind of a a turning point where I just let all of it go. I was like, what, fuck what other guys think being masculine or being a man is about. I'm going to define my own masculinity because I am my own man. And that's what is most important to me. That is what is going to make me a good father someday, a good son right now, a good man in my business and in my world and in my work, and to the friends and family and loved ones I have around me. So that's what I'm going to focus on. I'm not going to let society tell me who I am as a man.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you also sharing all of that, because that's really big for men. I feel like they have this pressure of how they have to behave, how they have to speak, how they have to act, like react, anything. They always have this pressure on what defines a man, right? And so at the end of the day, you have this pressure on, like, you can't necessarily look into your own feelings even. Like, what do you feel about things? Because if it's I'm emotional, or this makes me sad, or this makes me, like, angry or something like that. Like, well, anger, it's actually positive for men. But if it's something that's sad or disturbing, uncomfortable, it's like those are weak emotions.
And that's one of the things too, like you just touched on that, like anger is something that like guys are like okay with being. It's like, it's okay if you're an angry guy, or between guys it's like, oh, that guy's got anger problems. That's well, okay. For men, it's like, for me, when I'm with my friends, or I'm with other guys and we're all talking and chatting, it's great if we're all shooting the shit about what girl you're talking to, or what situation, or what money you're making, or what car you're driving. That's all great and all, but if I want, when I'm talking to one of my fellow men, I want that conversation to be deeper than the surface. I want that conversation to touch on something more than, yo man, like, how's work going, or yo, what's up with that girl you're trying to holler at? Like, who the fuck cares at the end of the day? We can talk about that shit till we're blue in the face, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't create any more connection between us. It doesn't delve into the DNA of who we are as people. Because at the end of the day, men, women, in between, we are people. And the connections we have to make that are going to not only, create better bonds between us, but also
stronger bonds within ourselves. Because if I'm real with who I'm talking to, if I'm talking to a guy, and instead of talking about the girls and the cars and the money and all the superficial things, if I delve deeper into that, then I get to know my fellow man better, and that helps me identify with myself in a more positive, stronger, and more connected way. So I want to talk about, what's going on at home, man? How's your family? I heard you had some troubles going on. I know your girl broke up with you. I know she dumped you, and I know you're trying to sit here and act all tough around everybody else, but I know you're hurting. I know you had feelings for her. Don't fake like you didn't. You did, because that's human, that's real, that's natural, and that's okay that you're hurt. What can we do now moving forward that we can learn from that? We can better ourselves, because especially for me, growing up, I always had a disconnection to my own father. My father, I respect him. He's he's like the hardest working man I've ever met in my life. He is, he's respected by many. Me and him had a disconnection in society and culture. He's from Lebanon. He was born in the mountains in Jazin. He was raised during the Civil War time in Lebanon. So he comes from from a throwback time, of a disconnection and that masculine identity of being strong, being quiet, being silent. All I have to do is provide for my family. That makes me a father. But the thing is, I needed that emotional connection. I needed that mental aspect that I wasn't getting, and that would be one of those things that along the way I had to realize and pinpoint. This could possibly be one of my flaws, one of my triggers, one of those things that led to me being so mad or trying to identify as this masculine man now, was because that's what I was used to and seen and portrayed. So to dig deeper and to ask what is going on with each other and how we are truly feeling is something us fellow men need to talk about now, tomorrow, and keep and continuing on into the future, so that way the men after us will acknowledge this. The men after us will grow, so that way one day when I have a son, I can tell him that it's okay to cry, that it's okay to be who you are. You don't have to play football. You don't have to have a nice car. You don't have to have the big money job. You can do whatever you want to do, and you can be whoever you want to be, and as long as that makes you happy, you are a man.
I'm really happy that you brought up that point. So you discovering all of this, seeing that you were feeling all of this pressure to keep down your emotions, to not express that, when you hit that low of your suicide attempt when you were 22, is that when it kind of just you came to that realization, like you needed to change that?
Not quite just then, but definitely that was the spark to my engine that I needed. Not that I needed it, but that's part of my story. It happened. There's nothing I can change about it in that moment in time. That is the decision I made, whether right, whether wrong, in between. That's not what the focus of it is. It's just that instance in my life occurred for a reason. And it occurred because I neglected myself physically, mentally, and spiritually for so long that because I felt so alone, even though I really wasn't, but I felt so detached, even though no one could understand what I was going through. I just hit that point where I was even not in understanding. I thought I was crazy. I was like, how can I feel like this? I'm not supposed to feel like this. And when that all happened, it put me on a path to learning more and being more mindful and more aware of what's going on in my life, what's going on in my head, what's going on in my heart, and how do I tackle these things going up? Because the biggest thing I learned during that low point in my life, during that darkness, and going through my rehab process with the therapist and the medication and the step-by-step program to get to becoming more acclimated back into my daily routine and my world, was life is something long, and it is something you have to live. It is a journey that in kind of today's Instagram friendly clickbait world where we all expect instant gratification. And that is something we so desperately need to understand, that instant success, instant gratification, instant marriage, babies and kids, and the happy relationship, those things are something that you have to work at, that are going to have ups, that are going to have downs, that are going to have times where you're going to question it. But in that search of information, in that search of trying to shed away all the exterior and really get down to the core of who you are, there is going to be some turbulence along that flight, but you're still going to get to your destination as long as you just hang tight and you keep pushing through.
So I did want to ask you, when it comes to, because you were also mentioning, so you've got a really good perspective on how you want to live your life and this positivity, because you radiate this positivity on, like, on social media. And it's amazing because, honestly speaking, when, like, just following you for the months that I've been following you, it's all been positive vibes. It's all been like you're thriving in life. And then when I was doing the prep work for this interview, I was astounded. I had no idea, you know, because that had to be a complete change in mindset and just perspective in life.
Yeah.
And so, and you also had a situation with your mom, right? And so, and I know that's more recent, like what you were experiencing before with the self-doubt and just in your lowest point in your life was years ago. You know, but that's sort of like it continues on even until now. That perspective, it helps you get through things, right?
Well, to touch on that, it's like you're talking about you're talking about the positive. You know, you see the positivity from my page and from what I'm doing, and I appreciate that so much because that's what I'm trying to do. You know, that's my effort. That's my intention. That's the message I want to spread with my social media. That's why I started my social media when I was in college. Like, Instagram came out when I was in college, you know, so I liked it because I was nostalgic. I like pictures, you know. I so desperately, you know, from my family dysfunction or dynamics. Now, don't get me wrong, my family's great. I love my dad, you know, but obviously we had our problems and our situations, like I said earlier, and I touched on kind of when I hit that low point and I attempted my suicide. You know, my parents were getting divorced. You know, I was disconnected from my father for so long. My sister was ill. You know, I was struggling with school and work and school and football. And I hit that low point then. And it was one of those things where all those triggers, they got me. You know, it was like that was a situation in my life where I lost. Everything else around me had won and had pushed me out and had forced me down. And going through, you know, after I grabbed that bottle of whiskey and those bottle of pills, you know, it was, you know, from that point on, it was just kind of, it's always been a constant, I'm never going to let myself reach that point again. Despite getting to that point again emotionally, getting to that point again mentally, to that low. There's been plenty of times since that time in college that I've been low, but now because of what I've been through, because of the steps and the effort I took, and the acceptance of myself and the acceptance of my flaws and the constant work. Now, you know, that's the thing. It's like I constantly work at myself. You know, yes, I do spread a message of positivity through my social media, and I do that because that is one of the things I decided a long time ago, that in spreading my message and sharing my story, it empowers me. It is selfish of me, honestly, I'll admit, but hopefully selfish in a good way, you know, to the listeners, because for me, it keeps me in check. Instagram, social media is my diary. It's you know, it's my journal. It's the way I express myself during moments of creative, either, you know, distraught or, you know, just explosion of, you know, radiance. Because, you know, there's times where I'll post something on social media and it'll be because I'm feeling so low. And I'll be honest, you know, if you guys see my stuff, sometimes I even talk about it. I'm like, hey, man, I had a really bad day today, you know, and it really fucking sucked. And I just felt so low, and I was just questioning myself, you know, with my business. It's like if I have a bad day with my food truck, we have a bad run or something, you know, a slow day, I'm sitting there just stressed and anxious and worried, just like the next guy is. But because I've been in that situation before and I failed, and I took the time to realize I failed, I was beaten, I lost. What do I do now? How do I fix that? How do I progress forward in my life, that when those moments come up now, like you touched on, like my mom, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, stage 2 breast cancer last year. So literally, you know, that day I found out. I'm getting off a shift. It was last winter I found out. So it's a year now. Basically, it's a year now, December. So last December, when I was, you know, I got off a food truck shift that day, and it was like 20 degrees and snowing, and I literally did like 10 orders maybe. And I come back and I'm huffing and puffing and angry. I'm like, you know, fuck, man, I barely made any money today. Work sucked. Oh, it was slow. I'm storming and huffing and puffing into my office, and I sit down. My mom comes into the office, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And I can just see in her face she has something she wants to tell me, right? And she's sitting there talking to me, and she's like, hey, I just want to let you know I have breast cancer. And I'm just, first thing I hit, I'm just like,
oh my goodness.
I shut up. I was just like, I was silent. I was locked up. I froze. I'm just looking at her, like, just like kind of out of body of experience. Literally, I'm like, you know, my apparition is sitting on the right side of me, watching myself sitting there listening to my mom right now telling me that she has this disease, this cancer that can possibly take her away from me, that could possibly remove, the person I love the most from my life. And in that moment, she finishes telling me, and it's like, to this day, I'll never forget, she finishes telling me this, and she smiles, and she literally just says to me, hey, it's going to be okay. We're going to take it one day at a time. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like...
She's like consoling you.
Yeah, she's consoling me about her telling me she has breast cancer. And I'm, being a typical mom, obviously, moms out there, they're always going to worry about their kids first. So, she even to this day, that moment, was just like quintessential, like, mom superwoman situation moment for me, And
how are things with your mom now?
Oh, they're a lot better now. She was told recently, actually, about 3-4 weeks ago, she found out, her cancer's in remission now. She's still keeping up with treatments, obviously, with everything. But, it was kind of, like this past year was very transformative for me. And it's, kind of, we're sitting here talking about my past, talking about how, I attempted suicide, how I, went through my rehabilitation process, how I kind of like getting back into the world, just kind of day by day was moving through and trying to improve upon who I was, trying to define myself, trying to learn how to deal more positively with life's stresses and struggles. Yeah. And here I am, a year ago, sitting there just smacked in the face with like another big ass struggle to deal with.
Another challenge.
Yeah, because the thing is, when one person gets cancer, the whole family gets cancer. Yeah. And I feel like that's so true, because being there for my mom along the way this past year, going to her chemotherapy treatments with her, taking her to her surgeries, you're in those moments and you see, and you're along with them, seeing what they're going through. And it was kind of one of those growing experiences for me, where it's like, cancer is the physical manifestation of this pain and this rot and this disease that can attack somebody. And it's this decisions my mom made every day. She decided to be positive. She decided to have a good outlook on life. She decided that, when people were asking her, hey, how you feeling? Instead of, kind of that attack where, oh, I have cancer. What do you fucking think? Like, come on. Like, which you would understand. You would understand that. You'd be like, yeah, you have cancer. Like, go ahead. You feel like shit. Yeah. Let it out, whatever. But she wouldn't do that. She would be like, hey, yeah, I'm not feeling so well. I'm feeling a little rough today. But, how are you doing? Yeah, what's going on with you? How was work today? How was your food truck shift? How was this? How was that? So and it was kind of that positive, real strong mentality. No matter like what you're dealing with, that is a constant. That's something that I think everyone should strive for. And that's something that like I was just striving for so much in this past year that like, my mom, like, I love her to death, man, strongest woman I know. So like her just always being so happy and positive and upbeat every single day while she was dealing with this just made me question myself and made me look at myself and ask, what can I do better? How can I be better? How can I be more positive? Yep. Not stronger. I kind of want to get rid of this word of strength and being strong, because I feel like we always inherently kind of correlate strong to being silent, to being quiet, to being,
or like
physically
resilience.
Strong. Yeah, exactly. Determined. Yeah, exactly. Not allowing yourself to be told who to be, what to do, how to feel, despite your environment, despite your circumstances, because for me, I'm from Brooklyn, New York. My family was poor and struggling in the ghettos in a small little room till we were, till I was like 11 or 12. Then we moved out to Virginia, and then it was kind of one of the things where I always had that mindset in the back of my head that was always like, there's this darkness that everyone has to deal with, whether it's because of this or because of that or because of him or her or this thing you had to go through or the sickness you have. No matter what you are going through, you are still in control of that path in your life. Yep. And I hope that first you keep taking those steps forward, no matter how small, no matter how big, but that you understand that stumbling is okay, that falling down is all right, that it's okay to not be okay, that's something we need to accept, understand, and talk about with each other, support each other through, create that community in which, no matter, I'm telling my story now, and it's like, don't feel boohoo for me, because I love my story. I own my story. And my story is something I'm still writing. Yep. And it's something I got so many pages left to do that, I hope that whoever's listening, realizes that I hope you keep putting that pen to paper, and I hope you keep writing your story, because it's going to be beautiful if it's not right now.
I love it. Amazing. I'm so happy you shared about your mom's situation, because you were going through a period back in your 20s that you had that big struggle you had to overcome, but then this is a more recent struggle, right? And it's still a learning experience, because like you said, it taught you to be more appreciative, to be more thankful, to just think
that's
about
one
the
of the things,
positive.
Yeah, and that was like another situation in my life where I'm realizing, like, I feel like all I'm in my later 20s now, but it's like I feel like, we're in our teens, we're in our early 20s, and we're like, oh my God, I'm about to be 30. Oh my God, my life's over. Oh my God, like I'm about to be 21. Oh my God, I feel so like, it's like we get to all these points and we feel like it's the end, but it's just the beginning.
Yeah.
Life is very, very, very long, and we're very fortunate to live and wake up every single day, but realize you got a lot more days coming. So don't let those stressors, like take you off track and lose sight of that, because that's the thing I learned. And like you said, I've been through all these situations, and it's like, It's funny because at every single one of those situations, I thought, this is the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with. How am I going to make it through? What am I going to do? Oh my God, the world's crumbling and falling down around me. But then it's like, down the road, I get hit with something else. And it's like, no. I kind of had that mindset now where it's that growth mindset. It's like, I got to realize those things are preparing me for the future. Those things are things happen to you for a reason. But you can make control and take advantage of those things to the best of your ability, despite the outcome, because those things are happening for a reason. So ask yourself, what's the reason? What can I take from this? What can I learn from this? So that way, the next time something comes up, I'm ready. I'm more prepared, because that was like, that's what, one point in my early 20s, I'm low, I'm down. I lost, but then I get hit with something else, and now I'm better. I'm more resilient. I'm built up a little bit more. I'm ready to take this on and push forward, because that's all life's about, is keep moving forward.
And those experiences, when you prepare for it, or when when you go through them and you learn from them, it just prepares you for that next challenge. Because like, how would you have reacted to your mom's situation, right, if you didn't cope and heal the way you did when you were at your lowest low? That early 20s.
Honestly, I couldn't even tell you. That's something I couldn't, because like one of those hypotheticals. Honestly,
I probably hypothetical question for sure.
I would say I probably wouldn't have handled it as well. I probably, I would have been like, boo-hoo me. My mom has cancer. I'm just really sad, and I don't want to go to work. I don't want to, deal with my pressures. I'm gonna yell at my girlfriend and take it out on her, because this is what I'm dealing with. Like, but I'm just so thankful that I'm where I am now, and I went through everything I went through, and I'm going to go through even more things. But it's like, that's life.
But you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready for it, because you got to be willing to live life. That's the hardest decision and the biggest decision to constantly make every single day, but it's the fortune that we have. We are able to make those decisions, and it's something we need to do and take advantage of and be in love with. Be in love with life. Don't be afraid of life. Don't be scared of it, because it is scary, it is big, it is all these things, but experience them, because you're here.
Yep.
So, live it up while you can,
I love it. I love that mindset. Just like you have to take advantage of every opportunity out there. Live life, right?
Exactly.
You only got one life to live.
Yeah, but say Netflix is going to be there. Don't worry about it. Going nowhere. Maybe some shows might get canceled or thrown off or something, but it'll always be there. You'll find it.
You'll be able to find it on YouTube, I'm sure.
Yeah, you'll get it online. Information's out there.
Awesome. You know what? I'm so happy you came on today. This was gold. Like, everything you shared, the audience will be able to appreciate it at depth.
Well, I hope they do, and I hope they realize that, I hope they're more empowered to share their story, because I'm sitting here sharing mine, and I'm fortunate to do it on the platform I am with you and your podcast and what you're creating, which is so positive, and I love, by the way. But I hope that even if you're not on a podcast, you're not in front of a mic, I hope you just talk to the person next to you. I hope you talk to your friend. I hope you feel a little less lonely right now, because you aren't alone. That's the thing. You are not alone on this planet. You're not alone in this life. You're not alone in your journey. There's people around you. Sometimes you might feel alone. I just ask you to dig a little deeper, to make a little bit more effort, and to live a little bit more life.
Awesome. Love it. I did have a final question for you.
Yes. What's up?
All right. We'll do a little lightning round question here.
Okay, cool.
What's the final message? And I know that you've shared a lot of them, but if you want to just give one positive, like really strong, impactful message, what would that message be that you share with the audience today?
Oh, that's a good one. I like that. My message would be that life is beautiful, and it's something we take for granted, and we get lost up in, and we let it like overwhelm us so much that we run away from it. And I just ask you to see the beauty in life. And even if you're not connected to it, even if you're not feeling that happiness or those sunshine rays, I hope that even in your rainy days, you realize that, you know, that beautiful picture is still something that's there, that you can work on and that you can get to, you know. That's it. Because from me coming from such lows, and, you know, from, you know, my mental illness and what I deal with, you know, even to this day, you know, I try to keep my message positive, but that doesn't mean I don't deal with the negativity, and sometimes that negativity doesn't overwhelm me. You know, I got my anxious moments, my depressed moments, I got my times where I'm down and I'm feeling low, but I promise you, you know, there's highs out there to experience. There's a lot of beauty out there to see, and, you know, take the time to see it.
Awesome. Love it. I do want to thank you for coming on my podcast today and being completely open and allowing yourself to be vulnerable. So I did have one final question.
Yeah.
So I do love to show support for local small businesses, right? So what business opportunities would you be looking to have in the DC Nova area?
So yeah, I run my food truck. It's called Roro's, named after my nickname that my grandmother gave me in honor of her. She taught me how to cook and got me kind of in love with food. So you can follow me at Roro's Lebanese. I have my little restaurant space in Alexandria, Virginia area, and then we have our food truck that's out in the DC and Virginia area a lot. So please follow at Roro's Lebanese on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
Perfect. So contact information for you would be at Chef Roro's World, and then your business Instagram account is at Roro's Lebanese. So just slide in to his DMs if you need to contact him, and then he'll take it from there. Well, thank you guys so much for listening today. Until next time. That concludes this episode. If you enjoyed it, feel inspired, and would like to hear more, please subscribe to the Relentless Minds podcast via the link in the show notes, or visit LoriJimenez.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.